this meeting of the Cabinet, which will be held as a hybrid meeting. The meeting is being recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed as soon as is practicable following the meeting. Everyone participating in the meeting will be accessing this meeting either from the Council chamber or from remote locations. Please could everybody ensure that mobile phones are switched off or to silent mode. Members will have received an electronic copy of the agenda. I will ask officers to present a summary of the key points. For the record, the agenda can be viewed on the Council's website. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch their microphones on and where remote their cameras on. But I would ask that, with the exception of myself as chairperson, at all other times you keep your cameras and microphones switched off, as this will help to minimise any background noise and interference and to ensure the connection remains as stable as possible. Whether in the chamber or remote, if any member or officer wishes to raise a point or question, they should press the hands up icon on the screen hand at the top right hand side of the Microsoft Teams window, and I will come to you in the order I receive requests. Please lower your hand once you finish speaking. The chat button has been disabled for this meeting. Please do not use your microphone until I invite you to do so. Officers from Democratic Services will be supporting the meeting and will be monitoring the use of microphones throughout the meeting, and where necessary will mute those not being used. I would also ask the officers to introduce themselves as and when I invite you to speak during the course of the meeting. You too should ensure microphones and cameras are switched off when not in use, please. We will now proceed to agenda business. And the first item is to receive apologies for absence, and I have received no apologies for absence. All Cabinet members are present and all members of the Corporate Management Board are also present. He's given his apologies, but my understanding is that he's joined the meeting remotely. We'll just check if he is. I thought I'd seen that he had joined remotely.
Yes, I'm here, leader.
I thought you were. Thank you, Mark. So we'll now receive declarations of interest and any declarations of a personal or prejudicial interest from members and officers in accordance with the provisions of the Members' Code of Conduct adopted by the authority in September 2008. Have I any declarations of interest, please? I cannot see anyone indicating, but of course, if you do identify a declaration during the course of the meeting, please indicate at that point and we will add it to the record. We now have for approval the minutes of the last meeting of Cabinet, which was held on the 11th of April 2023. Can I have a mover with their true and accurate record of that meeting, please? No. Thank you, Councillor Williams. And can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Farr. Is everyone in agreement, please? Thank you, colleagues. We'll now receive the first report on today's agenda, and that is a report of the Chief Officer for Finance, Performance and Change, and it is on the corporate risk management policy. Over to you, please, Caris. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. Just to confirm that I'm Caris Lord and I'm the Chief Officer for Finance, Performance and Change. So the purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet approval for the updated corporate risk management policy. Good governance requires the Council to develop effective risk management processes, and the Council has always recognised the importance of risk management. A formal policy was adopted in 1998, which outlines the process by which risk is identified and managed so that it does not hinder the Council's ability to achieve its corporate objectives. The aim of the policy is to facilitate effective corporate risk management throughout the Council so that risks are identified, evaluated, managed and monitored to enable the Council to achieve its corporate improvement priorities. This will be done by monitoring key risks across the councils, and this will be done via a number of different ways. So that will include Cabinet, the Corporate Management Board, the Corporate Performance Assessment meetings, Overview and Scrutiny Committees, and also the Governance and Audit Committee. Risk is also managed at service level, and responsibilities for managing risk in the authority are outlined for you in the policy at Appendix A this afternoon. Once a risk is identified and assessed, the Council can determine to tolerate that risk, treat it, terminate it, or transfer it to another body if that's appropriate. So this policy is reviewed annually. This year, just to let you know, there are no significant changes to the policy other than to reflect the introduction of a risk management software system, which will be implemented during the current financial year, and training for that system is being rolled out now with officers. So if I may, Leader, I would just take you to section 9 of the report, where it's recommended that Cabinet approves the updated corporate risk management policy. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Carys. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Carys, for the introduction to the report. I welcome the report. I welcome the transparency that it provides, and it enables members to understand our risk management process. And I hope that the new software will provide us some real useful data that we can use that to help us manage the risk. So good report. Happy to move it, Leader.
Thank you for that, Councillor Williams. I can see that the Deputy Leader wants to come in, so I'll bring in the Deputy Leader next, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. Thank you, Carys. I'm happy to second the report. I think the only question that I have is how is our regional risk register incorporated into this system of management? Because I think that's really appropriate, because otherwise what are we doing if it doesn't reflect each other? Thanks very much, Leader.
Thank you for that, Deputy. That's an important point given the increasing importance of the role of regional partnership arrangements, whether that be the partnership board, the safeguarding and other arrangements that we have in place, from public protection to internal audit. Carys, please.
Yes, thank you. That's a very interesting question, really. When we update the corporate risk assessment, officers do make sure that the key issues within their service areas are reflected in this corporate risk assessment, and also they will be very conversant with the risks that are being reported at a regional level. But I think, just to reassure you, Councillor Gebbie, we will do a read across as we're updating that corporate risk assessment now, to make sure there is a read across to all of the regional risk assessments, to make sure that we're reflecting that risk if it's impacting on BCBC.
Thanks very much, Carys.
Thank you for that, Carys, and I welcome this report and the updating of the policy. Proposed update in the policy. There's a key role here for a range of different stakeholders and organisations and individuals. There's a timetable in the appendix, and that's a timeline that started in January. Can you reassure us that that timeline is being followed, because it's all about how policies are implemented. I know that the Governance and Audit Committee take a particularly keen interest in this area, and I wanted confirmation from you that that work is well underway as part of the routine cycle. Thank you, Carys.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Just to confirm, as you know, the corporate risk assessment came as part of the budget setting papers back in February and March, which were considered by both yourselves and Council at the meeting on the 1st of March. We are adhering to this timeline, so the updated corporate risk assessment is going to Governance and Audit Committee in June. And we've changed the way that they look at that. So actually they look at one risk, if not two, at each session in more depth, where the relevant chief officer comes in and actually outlines the risk and also the mitigating actions that we are taking to try and manage that risk. And that's a new practice we've started probably for the last couple of meetings of GAC, which have worked very well actually, and has enabled members to understand those risks, and we're managing them. So the short answer to your question is yes, we are following that that timetable that you can see, and we do get a lot of questions and issues raised when we take the assessment anywhere, which would indicate that people are engaging with that process.
That's encouraging to hear, Caris. Now, I welcome the deeper dive the committee's now taken on individual risks, because inevitably there's a wide range of different risks and a large number of risks there would be for any organisation of this scale, size and complexity, and therefore the organisation benefits from that greater in-depth understanding of those risks and the actions that we take to mitigate them. So the recommendation has been moved by Councillor Williams. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Is everyone in agreement with the recommendations? Thank you, colleagues. We'll now receive the second report from the Chief Officer for Finance, Performance and Change, and that is on our grants financial management policy. Caris, please.
Thank you, Leader. So the purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet approval of the updated grants financial management policy and to confirm the grant acceptance approved financial signatories for the Council. So this policy puts in place processes to ensure the appropriate use of grant funding to support the Council in its delivery of services. It also puts in place processes to ensure that any grant funding received complies with our audit requirements, and also seeks to ensure integration with this between our other policies and processes. So the Council does have a grants financial management policy in place, and this was approved by Cabinet back in 2019. There's a revised policy for you at Appendix A today, and this has been updated following an internal audit review, and also to address the requirement the Council has to have in place a policy for the awarding of grants in relation to the Welsh language. So following the internal audit recommendations, the current policy has been updated at page 8, setting out what should be done where a grant offer is changed, in particular to ensure that all appropriate approvals for grant funding are in place. The policy has also been updated to ensure that application information is produced in Welsh, and that all applications received in Welsh will not be treated less favourably than those in English. So this policy and the associated processes apply to officers who are involved in bidding for funding, including expressions of interests, who have issues, who help with the financial management of grant-funded projects, who prepare claims for grant or similar funding streams, who deal with the financial closure of a project, interim and the final audits that are undertaken, and also the onward allocation or awarding of grant funding to individuals or organisations outside of this local authority. Those officers in finance who are authorised to formally accept any offer of grants are detailed for you at paragraph 4.3 of today's report. So if I may, Leader, I would just take you to section 9 of the report, where Cabinet is recommended to approve the grants financial management policy in Appendix A, and also the list of the financial officers as per paragraph 4.3. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Caris. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Leader, and happy to move the report. Again, this is a good report as it provides transparency to the grant financial management policy. It hasn't been before us for a number of years, as you see, and that's not a big problem. There was an internal audit report which identified a very low risk issue, and so this update now provides greater and some financial management of Council's grant application.
Thank you for that, Councillor Williams, and it is important that we have that transparency around the grants policy and management, and I'm pleased to see that our newest strategic objectives, corporate priorities, are reflected in this new policy, because we recognise that there is a cost to applying for grants, and we have to, when we're considering applying for grants, weigh up the value and benefit to the communities and citizens of the borough of that grant, and how they align with our corporate priorities, because of that administrative burden. And sometimes it can be a burden, can't it, to seek and apply for grants and then monitor the use of those grants. I can see that the Deputy Leader wants to come in. Councillor Gabby, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. On the back of your comments as well, I suppose, Carys, can you just reassure me that our processes are proportionate to the levels of funding that these grant applications are going out? I suppose, you know, if you're going to claim for £5, you really don't want to be signing a contract for it, is the example I would use, and being particularly mindful of the reason for good governance. But I just want it to be proportionate, especially for our third sector colleagues out there that are applying for certain monies. Thanks very much, Leader.
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader. Carys, please.
Yes, thank you for that question. I mean, the policy obviously covers the grants that we receive as an organisation from various funding bodies, but you're right, it also covers those grants which we may be giving out to other bodies. And I just would reassure you that we will ensure that any process in place is proportionate to the amount of money that people may be claiming. We're dealing with public money, so we need to be clear that, you know, they are spending the money in line with the grant, and that they're delivering the outcomes that we agreed when we made that grant. But we will ensure that the process for notifying people, for them receiving that grant, and for them reporting back anything that we may require is proportionate to the level of the grant that we are awarding to people.
Thanks very much, Carys. I'm happy to second the report, Leader.
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader, and thank you for highlighting that. It's an important point, isn't it? And a recent example, I believe it's a good example, is the funding that we awarded to local organisations for the support of and opening of warm hubs. The funding was small in scale, certainly for us as an organisation, and the process was streamlined as much as possible to reflect that, while still also recognising that when it is public money, there has to be a level of accountability, and there has to be a level of transparency about that public money. Okay, recommendations been moved. Seconder, Councillor Gabby, is everyone in agreement with the recommendations, please? Yeah, so that's a yes from all Cabinet members. So we'll now move on to the third report of the Chief Officer for Finance, Performance and Change, and this is on the review of our community safety partnership and the partnerships across Cwm Taf Morgannwg region. Carys,
Okay.
please.
Thank you, Leader. So as you say, the purpose of this report is to update Cabinet on the findings of a recent review of the community safety partnership arrangements in the Cwm Taf Morgannwg region and their implications for Bridgend Council as we seek to become one Cwm Taf Morgannwg safety partnership. Cabinet is also asked to approve in principle the merger of the Cwm Taf Community Safety Partnership Board and the Bridgend Community Safety Partnership Board. There are currently 2 community safety partnerships operating across the Cwm Taf Morgannwg area. So the Cwm Taf Morgannwg Partnership operates across Rhondda and Taf and Merthyr Tydfil local authority areas, whilst Bridgend Community Safety Partnership is for the Bridgend local authority area only. Increasingly, many of the strategic groups operating within the Community Safety Partnership framework are now operating on a regional footprint. As a result, the statutory population needs assessment and the wellbeing assessment for the Public Services Board and the Regional Planning Board have been undertaken across the Cwm Taf Morgannwg area. The priorities identified in these assessments in respect of community safety will be relevant to all local authorities and strategic partners in the area. An external review of the community safety partnerships in this area was commissioned and reviewed, and this has been undertaken by an external company on behalf of the region. The original aim of the review was to consider the establishment of a single community safety partnership for the Cwm Taf Morgannwg area, and also to look at the associated governance requirements and any specific infrastructure or funding needs to ensure that the partnership could operate as a strategic and effective partnership for the whole region. There is widespread support for integration and alignment with other regional arrangements, and it was felt that greater economies of scale and critical mass using a combined and streamlined approach to funding bids provides the potential for more resources and more efficiencies. The review is attached for you this afternoon at Appendix A, and it identified 9 specific recommendations which are detailed for you at paragraph 4.1 of this afternoon's report. The review report and its recommendations have been considered by the Cwm Taf Morgannwg Community Safety Partnership Board and the Bridgend Community Safety Partnership Board. Each board has accepted the report and its recommendations. The review recommendations are now subject to consideration by each individual local authority. So if I may, Leader, I just take you to section 9 of the report, where it's recommended that Cabinet notes the review into community safety partnership arrangements and approve in principle the merger of the Cwm Taf Community Safety Partnership Board and the Bridgend Community Safety Partnership Board, and notes that a further report will be presented to Cabinet to consider support and structural arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Caris. I can see that Councillor Farr would like to connect. Councillor Farr.
Thank you, Leader. I can't believe Caris has said everything I wrote in my note to say about the... Yeah, I mean, currently, like you say, we've got 2 community safety partnership board. There's been an independent review of such thing to bring it to have 1 community safety along the Cwm Taf footprint. As like Caris said, majority of the things that we are doing now seems to be all regionally focused. So they have made 9 recommendations. So next part will be for a very detailed plan to be formulated to see how these actions will be implemented. The 9 actions are on page 106 to 107 if anybody wants to have a look at them. I do have concern. My concern is are we going too wide? At the moment, the Bridgend Community Safety Partnership is focused on just Bridgend, and I have to say it works really, really well. I know I've had some referrals about women's safety, about domestic abuse, and I've gone straight to the police and it's been addressed immediately. So my concern is if we're going to go in such a vast region, will we lose that personal local touch? That's one point. The other concern I have is we were awarded £750,000 grants for us to get some CCTV cameras to put some training on for women. Are we going to be diluting that as well? Are we going to lose that amount of funding? Thank you, Leader. Oh, and can I formally move the report as well?
Thank you for that, Councillor Farr. A number of points there that I'm sure the Chief Officer can address. Thank you, Caris.
Yes, thank you for raising those points. On the first issue about is it going too wide, I think I can reassure Cabinet that we have a number of other regional partnership working like the Public Services Board and the Regional Safeguarding Board, and they do have common strategies, but also they do implement things locally in order to ensure they meet local needs. So
today, and there's confirmation there that there are certainly operational arrangements in place, for example, around tackling challenges within our town centres, and those localised arrangements will continue. And of course, there will be some benefits to us having a regional approach, because some of those partners that we work with are common partners across the 3 local authority areas, and quite often they're able to better resource and better support those partnership arrangements. For example, South Wales Police and Cwm Taf Morgannwg Health Board, when it is one set of strategic arrangements that they have to participate in, rather than 2 or 3 strategic arrangements. But what we can and will certainly do, in my view, is monitor those any new arrangements that are implemented to ensure that we continue to have the focus on the local, as well as, of course, on the regional. Councillor Spanzer, please.
Thank you, Leader. Firstly, can I second the report? And while I understand there's definitely an argument and a good reason for setting up this regional safety partnership board on the Cwm Taf Morgannwg footprint, that all makes sense. There's 9 recommendations in the report, and there's just 2 of them in particular, and maybe not today for further information, but I'd like in due course to have a bit more sort of information before we go too far. And one is on the business unit that should be developed and eventual costs for that, because I would like to think by us cooperating regionally across Cwm Taf Morgannwg that it'll reduce some of the costs, but that's something I'd like to see it eventually, that having this business unit is not going to hopefully increase costs, or if it is, where's that funding coming from? And the other point then is the appropriate scrutiny of the Community Safety Partnership Board. It does say in one of the recommendations that in addition to establishing the Cwm Taf Morgannwg Community Safety Partnership Board, appropriate local arrangements should be in place to scrutinise regional activity. I'd like in due course again to understand that a bit more, exactly how that's going to take place, so that the appropriate scrutiny is in place on a regional basis. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Spanzer, and for seconding the recommendations. Thank you. Caris, please.
Yes, thank you for that question. I mean, the second recommendation for this afternoon's report is actually we do bring a further report back to Cabinet to consider some of those support and structural arrangements, and one of those would certainly be about the business unit. So there is certainly more detail to be done on that piece of work, and we will be bringing that back to Cabinet for consideration before any of that is finalised. And the same issue would be exactly true of the scrutiny process as well. The new Public Service Board is actually going to be functioning from the middle of this month, and I understand that work is already going on across officers, democratic services officers across the Cwm Taf area in relation to that, and they will link that into the Community Safety Partnership work as well. So again, I would anticipate that's something that will come back to Cabinet once the detail has been put through.
Thank you for that. Thanks, Councillor Spanzer, and I think that's a very important point around those scrutiny arrangements that we will need to have in place, and they'll need to reflect those new arrangements and reflect the regional dimension that is being proposed. Councillor Good is next, please.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for the report, Caris. Just on this, it seems to me that there seems to be quite a few similar boards doing somewhat similar and overlapping policies, such as the RPB, the PSB, the Community Safety Partnership, the Community Cohesion and Equalities Forum, to name but a few of acronyms that we throw around quite a lot. And I just wanted to check, really, as a lot of these different forums and boards have different officers and different cabinet members involved in them, and that's before we consider the regionality of it and the different cabinet members and officers involved from different authorities. I just wondered if you could give me some information on how we're making sure that those different boards are joining up and that the relevant officers and relevant cabinet members are being kept as informed as possible to make sure that we are delivering not just for our borough, but making sure we understand the needs and how to support the other authorities involved in the boards. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Good. Caris, please.
I can reassure you, Councillor Good, that we're doing some work now to map across the key strategic partnerships exactly what their key priorities are and to map them across so that we can make sure that, one, there is no duplication across any of the partnerships, and equally as important, there are no gaps. So we'll have clear remits, if you like, for each of the partnerships, which we would intend to share with members so that we're all clear of what the different partnerships are doing and what their priorities are.
Thank you for that, Caris, and Councillor Good, that would be helpful. Councillor Williams is next, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. And yeah, I'm certainly happy to lend my in-principle support for this this direction of travel. Problems very rarely respect boundaries, and as a member of a border ward, you know, you've actually got to travel into our neighbouring authority to come back into Bridgend. And so, I mean, and these are the complications that we have to face. And so a regional approach is sensible, but you do need to have good local representation. And so I'll be interested to see the next report, I suppose, and understand the structure of how this will be supported, because it's important we get good local representation and a good mechanism for feeding back then the information from the region back to the local areas. So I think the next report will be very important, but I'm happy to support it at this stage. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that, Councillor Williams. A point well made about the regional dimension and value of such community safety arrangements, and I can see that Caris wants to come back. Caris, please.
I was just going to make sure that members are also aware that community safety partnership staff are always willing to come and talk to members about issues in their areas. So I think recently they've met informally with some of the members of Pencoed to address some concerns and share issues that they've got. So despite this work going on now around formal scrutiny, if members do have any concerns, then obviously the staff in the community safety partnership will be more than happy to talk those through with you.
Thanks, Caris, and of course it's been over 24 years since the Crime and Disorder Act was introduced and the community safety arrangements were put in place. So it is very timely to have this review, and certainly what has changed since then is the nature and scale of the terrorist threat that is very real, has risen. And it is not just a threat for our big cities, it is a threat for all our communities, and the action that we need to take to counter that, together with partners, is certainly an area of great specialism, and we need to work with partners to ensure that we maximise the opportunities to work with specialist partners, particularly South Wales Police, and help manage that risk together. There's reference to that within the report. I would specifically like us, given those new duties that are being introduced, it is anticipated by the UK Parliament as a result of proposals by the UK Government, and there are some fundamental new duties there for us as local authorities. I would like us to specifically look at how the Community Safety Partnership can ensure that we discharge those duties fully and properly as local authorities with our partners, as we're now proposing to have these regional arrangements with Merthyr, Bridgend, South Wales Police and other partners. Okay, the recommendation's been moved and seconded. With that requirement, the report comes back, looking at scrutiny arrangements, confirming as well about those localised arrangements that we have and the plans around extremism and counter-terrorism. Then the report's been moved and seconded. Is everyone in agreement with those additions and amendments?
Aye.
Thank you. Has the monitoring officer made a note of those additional requirements, which I think align with the report? Thank you very much, Caris. I'm sure you're relieved that that's your final report for today. And we will now receive the report of the Corporate Director for Education and Family Support on the outcome of the consultation process on the school modernisation programme for Coity Primary School. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Leader. For the purpose of recording, I'm Lindsay Harvey and I'm the Corporate Director for Education and Family Support. Leader, the purpose of this report is to inform Cabinet of the outcome of the consultation of the proposed enlargement of Coity Primary School, to present the findings of the consultation in a detailed consultation report, to seek a decision regarding the following in respect of Coity Primary School: to either publish the proposals with or without modifications and issue a public notice as prescribed in the School Organisation Code 2018, to abandon the proposals, or to significantly recast the proposals, then reconsult on the two following options: to change the language category of the school to Welsh medium, or to change the language category of the school to dual language. Elected members will be aware that Coity Primary School, which is a two-form entry school, is located on Park Derwin, which was constructed during Band A of the school modernisation programme. It opened in November 2015. The adopted supplementary planning guidance, that's SPG 16, which was applicable at the time, was used to calculate the size of the provision required. However, a 2019 review of pupil yield rates from the new housing developments demonstrated a higher pupil yield figure compared to the rates contained in the then's SPG 16. Leader, you'll be aware that SPG 16 has since been updated and the revised rates have been adopted by Council. Additional housing has also been constructed at Park Derwin, as was not planned as part of the original Section 106 for the development. The local authority has entered into a separate Section 106 agreement in respect to this additional housing and is awaiting a payment from the developer. In order to address the demand for places at Coity Primary School, officers undertook an option appraisal which identified the need to increase provision at the school. The appraisal resulted in a preferred option being identified in the form of a two-storey, four-classroom extension. In June 2022, Council approval was received to include the scheme in the capital programme and use BCBC capital resources to fund the extension. In October 2022, Cabinet approval was received to commence a statutory consultation process to make a regulated alteration in the form of an enlargement to the school. The enlargement will result in Coity Primary School being a 2.5 form entry school with an enlarged full-time equivalent nursery. The school's capacity would increase from 420 to 525 places for pupils aged 4 to 11 years. As a result of the enlargement, the published admission number for the school, the PAN, would be 75. The proposal, if approved, would come into effect from the beginning of spring term 2025. The full proposal is set out in paragraph 4 of the report. Prior to commencing consultation, the nursery provision of the school was reviewed, and the school has 72 full-time nursery places, and because of the development through mixed year groups, there will be an opportunity to increase the nursery provision of the school. The proposed enlargement of the school is part of a wider strategy to increase pupil places to serve the Bridgend North East area, and a phased strategy has been adopted to expand in primary provision. This is identified at paragraph 4.2 of the report. The outcome of this strategy will necessitate a catchment area review. Preliminary high-level options are being considered. However, these options will be informed by the outcome of the statutory process, plus the education option appraisal and consultation in respect to the residual Ysgol Gynradd, Ysgol Gymraeg Brogos site. Therefore, any proposed catchment changes can only be progressed in line with the decision regarding the use of that site. The views of stakeholders would be sought in respect of any proposed changes. In order to progress the proposed regulated alteration of Coity Primary School, consultation exercises were carried out in accordance with the Statutory School Organisation Code, and a range of alternative suggestions were submitted. These are captured at paragraph 4.5 of the report. These, Leader, require Cabinet's consideration. It's evident there is a high demand for additional pupil places in the Bridgend North East area. However, the potential implications of the linguistic nature of the provision requires consideration, and a decision is required in terms of whether those additional places are English or Welsh medium. Paragraph 4.6 of the report identifies the high-level observations that must be considered in terms of decision-making. In addition, other alternative suggestions were received from the consultation, and these are captured in paragraph 4.7. A summary of the issues raised by consultees and the local authorities' responses are provided in the consultation report as detailed at Appendix A of this report. Cabinet will need to consider the consultation report and determine the preferred way forward. Should Cabinet wish to proceed with the proposal, the next stage of the process is to publish a statutory notice outlining the proposal, which need to be published for a period of 28 days. Any formal written objections would be invited during that time. If there are no objections during this public notice period, then the proposal can be implemented with Cabinet approval. If there are objections in this public notice stage, an objections report will be published summarising the objections and the local authority's response to these objections, and Cabinet will need to consider the proposal in light of any objections made. Cabinet could then accept 4.11 of the report. Elected members will be aware that 1.65 million has been allocated in the capital programme for this project, and the local authority has entered into a separate Section 106 agreement in respect to the additional housing in the area. Once the Section 106 contribution has been received, which is approximately £300,000, this funding will displace some of the BCBC funding. Any changes to the total cost of the scheme will be reported back to Cabinet and Council as appropriate. Therefore, Leader, I take it the recommendations of paragraph 9 of this report.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. Councillor Blundell and then Councillor Farr, please.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Lindsay, for the report. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone who took part in the consultation, including parents, teachers, governors, and the wider public, and most importantly, the pupils who have said they can't wait to meet their future classmates, which I think is quite cute, really. I also want to thank the Welsh Education Forum representatives who work with us on our commitments to grow Welsh medium education across the borough. We have also considered the Welsh Impact Assessment carefully to ensure that we offer children excellent provision in both Welsh and English medium settings. I think it's pertinent to say that when viewing this report, it's important to look at it in the wider context of the area, which includes the west of Brackley. So when looking at this, we have already started the process of moving the current Welsh medium provision at Ysgol Borogu to a much larger site, offering the option to Welsh medium education in the area to a much wider cohort than it does currently. We still in future have to decide on the current Borogu site and how that will help alleviate any concerns about future school placements in the future. So with all that in mind, Leader, I want to say this is a positive report and one that I know members both here in the chamber and online will see as a positive step in offering more pupils a place in their local school. And I'll formally move the report. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Blundell. Councillor Farr, please.
Thank you, Leader. Can I second the report as well, please? I've got a question for you, Lindsay. After reading the Welsh Impact Assessments, can you outline for me, please, what are we doing to offer equal choice for Welsh and English medium in Coity, Brackley West region?
Thank you for that, Councillor Farr. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Leader, and thanks very much for the question, Councillor Farr. Traditionally, as you'd be aware, pupils from the Coity area want a Welsh medium education attend Ysgol Gymraeg Borogo. As part of the Band B School Modernisation Programme, Cabinet approval is received to make a regulated alteration to YG Borogo in the form of an enlargement. So what that means, the new school will be 2.5 form entry, as for 225 pupil places, and there'll be a nursery and observation and assessment class in that school as well. The replacement will be constructed on land off Ffordd Cadfan, which is located in the Coity Primary School's catchment area. And obviously increasing provision in the Coity Primary School to 2.5 form entry as well, and the increased provision at Borogo is part of a phased approach, as Councillor Blundell mentioned, for delivering additional pupil places in the Bridgend North East area.
Does that answer your question? Thank you, Councillor Farr. Thank you for that question. Next, we have the Deputy Leader, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. Thank you, Lindsay. I suppose I've only got one real question for you and your team, and that's around looking at all other aspects of school life, because I'm very conscious that the more pupils we have in the school, the more impact that has on other areas. So are we retrofitting anywhere? Is there any requirement to? Thanks very much, Leader.
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader. Lindsay, please.
Thanks, Leader. Thanks, Deputy Leader. Yes is the answer. Obviously, we're looking at a range of measures at the moment. One is how we can make better use, really, of the schools adjoining 4G pitch. I think that would be helpful, and we're currently working with the governing body of the school on that. The other thing we've also been asked to look at is whether or not we can look at changes to the school hall, and I think that would be helpful as well with regard to delivery of some initiatives that are going forward over the next year or so at the school. So, in a nutshell, Deputy Leader, yes, and obviously open to suggestions and working very closely with the school's governing body on this moving forward.
Thanks very much, Lindsay.
Thank you, Deputy Leader, and pleased to hear that we are working very closely with the school on these proposals, because it does mean that there'll be different demands on the school, and we'll want to reflect that where we can in the layout and the arrangements for the school when it is enlarged, if it is enlarged. Councillor Spanzik, you are next, please.
Thank you, Leader. And as you just touched partly on the area, there's a question which is 4.4 the staff consultation, and it talks about officers working with the school to ensure the yard space works and formally consulting staff, but it also mentions about safe access to the 4G pitch. Because where there's currently some bits of land we don't own with Persimmon Homes as well. And while it says expose safe access, there is still currently safe access. It can be read wrongly, I suppose, the report. So just on clarification, that what are we looking to do with a path to the 4G pitch, and helping extend the play space that will be taken up by some of the land we built on.
Thank you for that, Councillor Spanzik. I'm sure we get that clarification off you, Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Leader. Thanks, Councillor Spanzik. Absolutely. Indeed, this was something that was brought up when we met with the governing body, I think 2 weeks ago. Clearly, what we're trying to do is to work with the school to achieve a connection between the school site and the 4G playing pitch. The health and safety officers have visited the school and undertaken a risk assessment, so we can to that. That's obviously been fed back to the school head. But one of the things we want to do is to make any amendments in line with the school to make sure the school has space that can be used safely at play times and at lunch times by all the learners in the school. So again, more than happy to provide an update on that as that piece of work progresses.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. Thanks, Councillor Spanzik. Next is Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, a note from the report that, well, first of all, the open consultation event sort of highlighted or gives the impression that there are high numbers of people living locally unable to attend. And of course, that's the purpose of expanding the school, isn't it? No, it's making the school bigger. And one of the suggestions was to look at the catchment areas. I understand that catchment area, is quite contentious actually to move it, and you advantage some and disadvantage others. And this is not an immediate solution, but the report does mention that there will be a future review for catchment areas. I'm just wondering if you could expand a little bit on that and maybe say why immediately it's not a solution, but how it will become a part of a solution going forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Williams. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you for the question, Councillor Williams. Yes, that is the case. You'll be aware that we were currently working with Welsh Education Forum representatives with regard to catchment areas for Welsh medium schools, and it's certainly something we are looking at as a broader Bridgend piece. We've undertaken some high-level preliminary investigations into this, and we've considered how that would look for the area. I think the key thing is obviously we need to think about the wider piece with regard to the general development of education in the Brackley-Coity area. We'll be aware, obviously, the proposals around the new Broago and the existing Broago. So what we would do then is any decision around catchment area would obviously be progressed in line with any decision around the residual Broago. Clearly, moving forward, the views of stakeholders in that area, residents, would be sought in respect of any proposed changes, and that would come back to Cabinet in due course.
Thank you for that, Lindsay and Councillor Williams. And undoubtedly, there is an impact in terms of Welsh language, and we have to consider that every time we make a proposal now on school modernisation and under the code. And of course, like all Cabinet members, I've seen the Welsh impact assessment that's referenced in the consultation report. and there's a link there, and there's a full impact assessment, and also I note as well that we've had views expressed by RAG, the group that represents some parents and other people interested in the promotion of Welsh medium education. I think it would be helpful, Lindsay, if you outlined some of their concerns and indeed the responses, which again are referenced in the full consultation document, please.
Thank you, Leader. So first of all, just to reiterate what you said, we're delighted to get the responses back as part of the consultation. Clearly, we want to hear what the public and stakeholders and delivery partners say in this. And a key part of this is not just being as part of this consultation, but also working very closely, as Councillor Blundell has said, with representatives of the Welsh Education Forum and indeed key stakeholders within the school, as Councillor Blundell said, the learners most particularly. So generally over the next few years, obviously we put as part of our Welsh Education strategic plan, strategic vision of how we see Welsh education and Welsh language education grow within the County Borough. You'll be aware, Leader, the replacement YG Bro School will offer approximately 150 more Welsh medium places for pupils aged 4 to 11. And the other thing I think is important as well, we don't just consider this scheme in isolation. As you'll be aware, as part of our WESP, we are looking at additional Welsh medium provision in the south east and Bridgend town areas of County Borough, and also this will be greatly welcomed because it will result in more places being available in the future for Welsh medium education. So again, this will be subject to future reports to Cabinet and Council, and this is detailed in further information within our WESP.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. And of course, as Cabinet members that have made the decisions around and will continue to make the decisions around Bro Ogw, we know about the proposed expansion, and it's important to recognise the proximity of Bro Ogw to the community of Coety, and indeed the proposed relocation and the planned expansion of that, not only of the school itself, but the opening of a Welsh medium childcare facility proposed at Bro Ogw, which of course I'm sure will increase the level of interest and take-up of Welsh medium provision in that area. Also, can you just confirm that Estyn were consulted as part of this process? Estyn, of course, is the official inspectorate for education for Wales, and they've specifically considered the proposed impact on Welsh language within their response. So could you provide more information? I've read it myself, but obviously there will be observers to this meeting that wouldn't have had the opportunity, as we've all had the opportunity, to read all of the submissions and the responses. Lindsay, please.
Thanks, Leader. Is happy to qualify that. You'll be aware that we involve Estyn as a key delivery partner in a lot of decisions like this, and clearly thereafter educational standards. Where we are very lucky, we have two schools we've referenced here today, in Coety Primary School and in Bro Ogw, both excellent schools, both with very good outcomes for learners and very well thought of as part of the community. So Estyn have no concerns with the proposal. And again, they will obviously work with us to ensure whatever changes we make to those schools result in the same standards, if not better, to achieve going forward.
Thank you for that. That's reassuring, Lindsay. And I certainly noted that in their description and their response, they've stated that the Council has taken sufficient account of the impact of the proposals on Welsh medium provision under its own Welsh Education Strategic Plan. Can you also confirm as well for us, Lindsay, the action that Coity Primary School has taken, and I know it has been very proactive in its work to promote the use of the Welsh language within the school, and have plans to further develop that in the future. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks, Leader. Yes, happy to do that. Coity Primary School, amongst other schools in Bridgend, I think is 18 of them have recently been awarded the Cymraeg Campus Award. See Welsh medium or Welsh language education within the school as being pivotal to take the school forward. You'll be aware as well that our national mission, the publication recently from Welsh Government, places development of Welsh language as a very key priority within the new curriculum. And I'm happy to report that Coity, along with other schools in Bridgend, are doing a really great job, Leader, of delivering excellent Welsh language support for their learners where required.
That's very heartening to hear. Thank you for that, Lindsay. Councillor Blundell, I can see you'd like to come in.
Yeah, it's just to say I recently, quite a few weeks back, myself and the Mayor visited Coity Primary, and I had the pleasure to witness one of their Welsh lessons. And they take the Welsh language very seriously. They're very passionate about it wasn't just because it was St David's Day week, but they were definitely taking a great passion, and the head and the teachers have all been learning Welsh alongside them to expand their own vocabulary, and it's something that they do take seriously, as do all our schools in Bridgend. They take the medium of Welsh language very seriously, and they want their children to be bilingual as best they can, and encourage the use of the language wherever possible. And some schools are even now being trilingual with the use of sign language, which I think is brilliant. So thank you.
That is excellent, and I can see Lindsay wanted to come back.
Thanks, Leader. Just very quickly, really for the benefit of anyone who's hearing this at the moment, I'm really looking forward, actually, after this meeting today, to go to Coity Primary School, because we've got the Youth Speak event there, and I noticed we've got a number of schools there from a Welsh medium community. So very much looking forward to joining Carwyn Jones, who's going to be adjudicating the proceedings this evening, and supported by Bridgend Rotary. So again, looking forward to a really interesting evening of outstanding narration and debate. So again, I'll be visiting Coity Primary School about an hour after this meeting, Leader.
And myself, I think, and the Cabinet member will be joining you, and I'm particularly interested to see in the Welsh language impact assessment that this school currently has a teacher on sabbatical on the Cymraeg mewn blwyddyn. I hope I pronounced that correctly. A course which is a way of teachers taking a sabbatical so that they can become, I think the idea is they become fluent in Welsh. And I'm also really encouraged to see that the school works very closely with Bro Ogw as a neighbouring school in relation to the Eisteddfod. So there's a lot of work being undertaken by the school to promote the use of the Welsh language. So the recommendations have been moved and they have been seconded. So is everyone in agreement with the recommendations, please? Yes. Thank you, colleagues. And of course, we will receive a further report back on the outcome of that at the next stage of this process. And I'm sure that will be a detailed report. Thank you, Lindsay. We will now receive the final report on today's agenda, and that is a report of the Chief Officer for Legal, Regulatory, HR and Corporate Policy, and it's on the proposed dates for meetings of Cabinet Committee Equalities and Cabinet Committee Corporate Parenting. Kelly, please.
Thank you, Leader. This is just a short administrative report for you today, and the purpose is to propose for your approval the programme of meeting dates for Cabinet Committees Equalities and Cabinet Committee Corporate Parenting for the municipal year 2023 to 2024. The proposed programme of meeting dates for those committees is set out at paragraph 4.1 of your report. It should be noted that the date of the Budget Cabinet meeting, which is currently scheduled for the 20th of February 2024, could be subject to change depending on the timeline of the Welsh Government Local Government Settlement Scheme. I therefore refer you to recommendation 9.
Thank you for that, Kelly.
Can I move the report, please? And can I thank you for putting this forward? So I think what we find that during school holidays, we have, officers with children not being able to attend. So it really fits in well with being a family-friendly council. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly, please.
Thank you, Councillor Farr. We have tried to, where possible, to avoid school holidays. Unfortunately, there are some dates which are difficult to avoid because, as I said, the Budget Cabinet meeting has to be held at a certain time to fit in with the settlement timescales, and it does look like that will fall in the February half term. But we are trying to avoid them, and we're also going to try and do that for full council meetings going forward.
Thank you for that, Councillor Farr and Kelly, and of course it's trying to reflect the care needs and responsibilities of members as well. So we've made every effort to minimise the number of meetings that are held during those school holidays, but it's not always possible to achieve that. There are certain committee meetings that have to meet on a frequent basis. For example, licensing and development control and appeals, and we're not able to diarise those meetings always outside of the school holidays, but we make every effort to do so. Councillor Williams, please. Thank you for seconding the recommendations. Is everyone in agreement, please? Aye. Thank you, colleagues. We do not have any urgent items that have been brought to my attention, and therefore I will bring this meeting to a close, and thank you all for